kids. I've got a couple of pretty important things I'm going to tell you. I want you to listen to them and remember them. That's me, Jerry King, the policeman, but a pretty good friend of kids if I do say so. I've got 3 of my own, as a matter of fact. I think the world of them, and I sure wouldn't want them to get into any trouble, any more than your parents would want anything to happen to you. And that's what I'd like to tell you about, getting into trouble. You've heard your mothers and fathers talking, or seen in the newspapers, about things that happen to other little boys and girls, haven't you? You know how they went away with strangers and their mothers and fathers never saw them again? I know you wouldn't want to do that to your folks, but sometimes boys and girls forget what their parents and teachers tell them about strangers. And there's always the wise guy who thinks he knows it all. Remember, the kids who get in trouble with strangers are those who forget what they've been told, and the ones who think they know more than their parents and teachers. I'm going to talk to these kids here about the same things. Why don't we all just see how some of the other boys and girls got mixed up with strangers, so we can make sure it doesn't happen to us? Remember the story about the little girl in the paper? Hello, little lady. All alone, aren't you? Wouldn't you like to go for a ride with me? I'll buy you some ice cream. Well, nobody ever saw her again. It was in the headlines and on the radio. You probably heard it.
The police believe she was kidnapped. They have no clues to the identity of the stranger in the shabby car. Nobody thought to take the license number of the car. And if you see any little girl...
That's the way it happened. And just look at how sad it made her mother and father. I had to tell them about it. All because she forgot what they'd told her about strangers. Now let's look at some of the places and some of the ways you might run into trouble. Let's see what we should do if anything happens. Here's one, a lonely alley. It'd be dumb for anybody to try to harm you with a lot of other kids around, wouldn't it? And what kind of a kid would a man like that look for? That's right, a wise guy. Like Jimmy here, who thinks he knows everything. Maybe he won't get into any trouble, but he's sure taking a chance. I don't think it's worth it, do you? Now, here's a place you always meet a lot of friends, like the cowboy up on the screen, and the manager. What if somebody says hello to you or smiles? Well, that's all right. Most everybody likes kids, whether they're strangers or whether they know you. But watch this man. He followed the little girl into the theater. He isn't just an ordinary stranger who likes kids. He might make trouble. Watch. See how he put his arm around her? You should never let anybody do that except your own family. No stranger. Thank goodness this little girl is smart. She changed her seat. Just what her parents told her to do. That's exactly what you should do. The man followed her. So what'll she do now? That's right. Get the usher. If this should ever happen to you, do the same thing. The usher will make sure none of the kids is ever bothered by that man again. You see how it works? If you just remember what you've been told and don't be a wise guy, it's easy to stay out of trouble. For instance, in a place like this park. This little girl's mother told her never to take candy from strangers. Well, she forgot. But her brother didn't. He started to yell, and the man ran away. He was afraid of policemen. Remember that, kids. It's a good trick. Hello, Sally. I'm a friend of your mother's. She sent me to bring you home. Come on. Now, Sally's mother told her never to ride home with a stranger. But Sally forgot, too. It was only because her friend here was smart and took the license number that Sally ever got home. Well, we've seen some dumb bunnies so far, haven't we? But these are the dumbest of all, the hitchhikers. Why? Well, even if the driver doesn't mean any harm, and you're just plain lucky if he doesn't, he may be a reckless driver or a speeder. His car might have bad brakes. The hitchhiker doesn't know. He just goes right along anyway. Well, these kids aren't going to be so lucky. Too bad. They asked for trouble and they're getting it. But thank goodness one of the boys kept his head. He took the license number of the car. And another boy saw a squad car coming down the next street. Maybe the little girl can still be rescued. If they can get the radio alarm out quick enough. Just think, if they hadn't been hitching rides, this needn't have happened at all. But that doesn't help much now, does it? That's lucky. 2 motorcycle policemen got the alarm. And there they go, after him. Just remember, whether you're a boy or a girl, that might be you in that car if you hitch rides. Look at that, they got him. This little girl is very, very lucky. Who knows what might have happened if one boy hadn't been smart enough to take the license number? Isn't it silly to worry your parents and take chances like that? Well, gang, what have we learned from all this? Maybe Dodo here can show us. He does everything wrong. If Dodo meets a stranger in a lonely alley, he just goes right along with him. Or at the movies, Dodo's friends with anybody, stranger or not. Isn't that dumb? Sure, her parents tell her not to, but Miss Dodo thinks she's smart. She thinks they don't know what they're talking about. Do you know what a dodo is? A dodo is an extinct bird. That means it isn't alive anymore. That's the way this dodo's going to be, extinct, taking all those chances. Well, who do you want to be like, kids? A dumb dodo or a really smart kid? Well, it's about what I had to tell you. Just remember those 2 things: to do what your parents and teachers tell you, and to be a really smart kid, not a dumb dodo. If you do, it'll be pretty hard to get into any trouble. Well, kids, I'll be seeing you.
Pass. Open. I'll see you. Come again. Cards? Be the next 3.
I'll play these.
I have to check.
I got one. I'll see you, and, bet the works.
It's too steep for me.
I'll call. Three, 7, 8, 9, and the Joker. I'll hold it, Joe boy. An honest ace-high flush and a lady to go with it. Your friend the Joker just got you in trouble.
Well, I'll be damned.
Should I tell him or you?
Why? He's learning. Oh, come on. What's the gag? Learning what?
Look, you just bent your shirt because you had the Joker, right?
Well, sure. I made my flush with it. Wouldn't you?
With the Joker? Not us.
And we already did. Both of us. And never again, brother. Never again.
That's okay, fellas. Once is enough for me.
A steel fabricating plant where no crews are working is a quiet place, safe and sound. No lifts swinging overhead. No hot rivets flying through the air. No buggies moving. No wheels turning. No chips flying. Officially, there's only one kind of job being done, and it's a quiet one. But unofficially, in every plant everywhere, there's another kind of job being done, and the guy who does it works 24 hours a day. This eager, insidious fellow is no friend of anybody's. He doesn't take time out for lunch, not even a coffee break. He belongs to no union. He's on nobody's payroll. You've heard of impossible accidents? He's the guy who makes them possible. He's the Joker.
Lost time. That's my specialty. And it looks like this is going to be one hell of a good day today. I've been checking this mill all night. And with the help of a couple of patsies, I figure today's a great day for a couple of bone-busting, limb-crushing, lost-time accidents. And you know what that means. Stretchers, pain pills, confusion, compensation checks, crutches, canes, wheelchairs. Oh, this accident business is just one laugh after another. But it ain't easy. People are too safety conscious. You gotta work on them. Sometimes it takes years. And lots of psychology. Hang around. You might learn a few things.
Now the quiet hours are over. Men everywhere are returning to work. Every new day begins as a good day. Yet, every day some men somewhere get hurt for no apparent reason. Is it fate? Just bad luck? This is Fred Stanton, whose job is handling material out in the receiving yard. Fred's a man who keeps his mind on his job. He's a veteran, a pro. There's nothing special about Fred. He just wants to get home to the family in good shape every night. So he's learned the safety rules that apply to him, and he follows them to the letter. He pays attention to crane signals, makes sure of his blocking, always stands clear of the load. It won't be easy for the Joker to get Fred, not without plenty of help.
Yeah, but today I got help. Hiya, Eddie boy. Nice fella, Eddie. Just my kind of guy. Not careless, you understand? Just kind of casual. And a good boy. Listens to me, too.
Now, a man wouldn't ordinarily even consider adding a lift to a pile like this. And Eddie, usually, would be no exception.
Hey, Eddie, why crack your brain over a little problem like this? You got real ones. Like, remember what that flat-mouthed wife of yours said at breakfast?
Why can't you be like other men? Can't you be like Jane's husband? She gets a new dress every week, and I haven't had a new dress for years.
Go on, Eddie. You ain't got all day. A little extra blocking will be good enough. That's the way, Eddie. That's the way.
Yes, that's the way, Eddie. The way to set a booby trap for a friend. When Fred eventually comes back to work, he won't be the man he used to be. He'll take any job he's offered because any income is good when you have the debts that Fred will be piling up. And as for Eddie, well, next time it might be his turn. A daydreamer like Eddie is an easy mark for the Joker. If a man lets himself get distracted when he's working with a crane, he might just put the chains too close to the end of a beam. And if the crane operator isn't on the ball, maybe he'll make a leaning booby trap, or a top-heavy pile with an oversized beam, or maybe many tons of steel resting on unsupported blocking. Yes, there are plenty of opportunities for the Joker in the receiving yard, or any place that men are handling steel.
How's that for getting a day off to a good start? You know how much lost time I'm writing up on Fred? 300 days. Oh, I'm going to keep that Eddie around for a while. He's a big help. Getting a guy's mind off his job. That's my system. Distraction. You gotta be some kind of screwball to want to hurt yourself or your buddies. But you gotta be only human to daydream on the job. And all of these guys are only human. Now you take some of those guys back there in pre-assembly. There's one of my favorite places. Come on, I'll show you. Hey, there's Howie Smith. He's what they call a materials handler. Been hooking plates like that for 7 years without a slip. But I never give up. Remember, the secret is distraction. Watch this. How are you, Howie? How's the bowling team doing these days? I hear you boys are going for the championship tonight. And that you're top man on the team. That's a mighty good right hand you got there, Howie. A mighty fine right hand. I did it! I did it after all those years! Boy, what a chump! Lost time? You betcha. I'm proud of this one, and I got a right to be. You gotta keep your eyes open these days. Not everybody would have spotted how he wasn't wearing safety shoes. What a day I got going, huh? 2 lost time accidents. Ooh-wee! Love those cranes!
One of the Joker's favorite wrinkles is to get a man so preoccupied that he fails to notice that the crane isn't directly above the lift and forgets he's on the hospital side when he gives the signal to hoist. It's the kind of mistake you won't get a chance to make twice. Far more routine for the Joker are injuries to hands and fingers caused by pinch points, but which might be better described as mangle points. Or amputation points.
So what's a couple of fingers? You don't need 2 good hands anyway. The way I see it, 1 hand's all you'll need to go over all those bills you won't be able to pay out of your compensation check. Sure, 1 hand's plenty to do most anything. Even to crumple up that last empty pack, because you can't waste money on a luxury like cigarettes. So go ahead, fellas. Take a little chance now and then when you're working with a crane. Your luck will hold. Sure it will. You know, I came up in this business when the only safety motto you ever heard was, "Don't bleed on the steel." Sentimental, wasn't it? Well, it's all changed now. They got these safety guys crawling all over the place. Everywhere you look, they got these crazy safety posters, slogans, mottos. It's enough to drive you nuts. I don't mind admitting to you, it's made my job a whole lot tougher. But that's the way the bone crunches. I do my best. I still get results. You give me just one tiny opening, and I'm in there trying. Huh. I think I see Jim Kirby down there. I wonder if he's ready to play Patsy. You know, Jim operates a punch press. Real safety conscious. Always wears safety glasses. Ugh. Well, it's worth a try. Psst. Hey, Jim, how's that boy of yours? Still sick? Oh, I hope it's nothing serious, Jim. So there are no side shields on those glasses, Jim. So what? They're plenty safe. That's it, Jim. Oh, I didn't see what happened.
Neither did Jim Kirby. He learned the hard way that there are no little compromises with safety. All a flying chip of steel ever needs is a small opening. Lost time, plenty. Lost eye, well, let's hope not. Sometimes the Joker doesn't have to work so hard to get a man to injure his eye. A few months ago, for instance, one man was driving a pin through the splice plate of a girder with a sledge. A chip from the pin sliced across his left eye. How about safety glasses? They were in his pocket.
Why should a guy wear safety glasses anyway? They're heavy on the nose. And anyway, nothing's ever gonna happen to your baby blues. Not a chance. Now, there's another angle on this accident business I ain't told you about yet. Feet. My favorite part of the human anatomy. I got 2 million ways of handling feet. Matter of fact, I'm starting down right now to try one of my standard gags. Come on. Main floor, all out for fitting, riveting, and welding. Here's my pigeon, Bob Davis, a bouncy bachelor. Just takes a little sunshine and a warm breeze to set him up. Hiya, Bob. How's that nice weather suit you? Get you thinking about better things, huh, Bob? Oh, hey, boy, you do all right. Just don't let your work take your mind off of her, hmm?
The Joker has a way sometimes of being two places at once. Here's a friend of Bob's, setting up to gouge some plates in the weld shop. Maybe the pleasant day has distracted him, too. And that's why he doesn't keep that cable out of the aisle. Mark up another one for the Joker. But the Joker didn't have to get Bob Davis on a welding cable. He could have used this scrap bucket, thoughtlessly placed in the aisle. These metal bands might have been even better. These beams sticking out into the walking area. Or a patch of broken concrete like this, which the Joker has kept from the front office. Or even one loose bolt like this, which not long ago sidelined a man for 6 lost time days with a bruised ankle and blood poisoning. One sure thing about poor housekeeping, it's a mighty big help for the Joker. Here's another way the Joker gets a man, the long shortcut. The last man who fell for this one suffered severe lacerations of the abdomen. Lost time, 30 days. The Joker can distract a man until his feet wander into some dangerous places. Lost time, 21 days. Safety shoes saved the toes. Lost time, 42 days. Fractured metatarsal. Again, the steel fell only a few inches. But if a man really wants to cater to the Joker, all he has to do is wear ordinary non-safety shoes. Then, as one man learned to his sorrow, it takes only a 3-pound socket and bit to fracture vital small bones in a foot. 3 pounds, but 42 days of lost time.
Oh, these patsies who don't wear safety shoes. How I love them. But I gotta warn you guys, they've come up with a new safety shoe that I want you to steer clear of. They call it the metatarsal shoe. Protects these little bones here between the ankle and the toes. Makes it almost impossible to get at your feet. But I ain't worried. I'll start an economy way. Don't buy those metatarsal shoes. You can spend the money on something better, like maybe crutches. You know, sometimes, for variety, I let material handling go for a day or two. And then I work on finishing operations. I'll show you. Now take grinding wheels without their guards. Oh, they're the best thing since hand grenades. And reamers, woo-wee. When I get a guy to daydreaming on one of these, like riding the tail end of a tornado.
The tail end of a tornado, but not if the Joker doesn't make a man careless. The reamer deserves respect. It's going to turn something. It's either going to turn the bit or the handle. You get your choice. The best insurance against a reamer gone wild is an anchored safety bar. Steel is tougher than bone. Better let it take the tough knocks. The reamer is a buddy system machine. Both men must keep a good hold on the handle, or it's goodbye, buddy. Let your attention slip when you're reaming, and a hand or shirt may slip down onto that whirling bit. Here's an idea the Joker likes to encourage. Helps gain good leverage. And maybe lose a good finger. It's pure luck this man still has 5 fingers. He can get a new glove. The portable grinder, a handy machine in this business, and a big favorite with the Joker. A portable grinder left lying on the floor is likely to be hit by any number of falling objects. Looks okay. It usually will. Here's a brand new grinding wheel that was accidentally dropped. It looks okay too. Now in slow motion, watch what happens when it's run up to speed in a test machine. Not long ago, that kind of shrapnel gave one man compound fractures of the right ankle and upper left leg. Lost time, 270 days. Ah, now here's one that's given the Joker a lot of laughs. Doing one thing and thinking of another. Of course, the machine won't trip unless the operator starts it himself, but that's easy.
I had old two fingers thinking about that new car he's planning to buy. That's all it takes. Just a little distraction. You know, there ain't a plant in this whole operation where I ain't got something going for me. I get guys around here in the main shop at Ambridge, the plate shop in Orange, every place. And any place in the shop, too. For instance, every once in a while, I even get me a painter.
Paint is slippery when wet. Painters know that. But so does the Joker. And painters, as this man is discovering the hard way, have material handling hazards of their own. No safety shoes. Result, plenty of agony and 60 days lost time. Every once in a while, the Joker gets himself a man out in the loading area, too. Not long ago, a worker was removing chains from a member which had just been landed onto skids. The Joker distracted him. He forgot to clear the hooks under the member and attach them to the ring before signaling the craneman.
Tell the truth, I don't like it to end that way. What are you going to do? Steel's heavy. You can't always tell what's going to happen. Wow, that ain't my problem. My problem, my biggest one, is working on guys who won't go along. You see, with a lot of these American bridge guys, safety is an attitude. Take Tom Daniels, for instance. That guy's as stubborn as a mule. I've never been able to get him distracted. Just look at that clean aisle he's working in. Disgusting. He's even got a threshold plate over that welding cable. And metatarsal shoes. It's enough to make you sick. Hey, Tom, I hear you're going hunting this weekend. Bet you're looking forward to that, Tom, old kid. Hey, Tom, look it. Bet you'd like to have a new outboard, wouldn't you? Okay, Tom, let's hurry this job up, huh? Come on, let's swing her along there. Cut out all this slow, cautious stuff. Come on, Tom. All right, you square. Guys like Tom Daniels burn me. Always keeping their minds on what they're doing. But I ain't had a bad day at that. 4 out of 5. Sometimes, though, it goes the other way. I get maybe 2, 3 solid months of guys like Daniels. Then it gets pretty discouraging. But I don't give up. I told you this accident business takes a lot of brains. It sure does. But sometimes it takes something more. Patience. Or would you believe it? I've had to wait around 15 or 20 years for some guys to play patsy for me. But I can wait. Time's on my side. When a guy does a job long enough, he gets to thinking he's accident-proof. He starts taking little shortcuts, so he just forgets, and nothing happens. They get right. And then comes the day I get them distracted. Just for a second, it's all the time it takes, and pow! They're mine. Woo-wee, they thought they were accident-proof. What patsies. How about you, old buddy? Are you accident-proof? You want to bet? See you around.
It's an experiment. They want to see how light a division can be.
How do you mean light?
No vehicles, only 17 trucks to the whole outfit. Everything's carried on mules, push carts, and men's backs. Yeah, it's pretty rugged. Now we go to Florida for 3 weeks of amphibious training and Peggy. I've been wanting to do that ever since March.
Well, for heaven's sakes, what stopped you? Paul, you'll be shipped right from Florida, won't you?
Mm-hmm.
When do you have to report?
Before midnight Wednesday. Hey, where are you going?
We're going down to get our license.
But, darling, come back here. Let's talk about this.
Paul, you didn't mean marriage.
You little idiot. Of course I mean marriage. We'll be married, but afterwards. After we've won the war. Not now. It wouldn't be fair to you.
Well, it's what I want.
Well, it's what I want, too, honey. Don't think it isn't. Peggy, don't you see how I feel about it? I didn't mean even to ask you, but I couldn't help myself. Here's how things are, darling. I have my mother to look after. And look, this is one of my flush days, too.
Well, I've got my job.
I know, and I've got my pride. We'll be married when I can make a home for you. Don't you see, Peggy?
Oh, leap year's just a big story, too, like Santa Claus.
Here, don't, Peggy. Don't, baby.
Looks like you're starting your amphibious training right here.
You're a swell girl.
Well, then why don't you marry me?
No.
Okay, Lieutenant, you win. But I'll tell you this. I'm going to get some war work myself. The Judson Plate Glass Company's seen the last of me.
But, Peggy, it's such a fine job, and just because we
That's
can't...
not it, Paul. This is something that's been brewing for a long time. I'm going to find something that'll make you proud of me. Something that means something. To bring you home quicker. You'll see, I'll find it. Goodbye.
Bye.
Oh.
Oh, my dear.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
Look what I did.
Did you break the skin? Let's see.
Who cares about the skin? That's my last pair of nylon.
That's a shame.
Oh.
Look, I live right here. Come in and let me clean up that knee for you.
Well, thank you very much, but I don't want to bother you.
Well, no bother. Come on. Now then, this catastrophe. The stocking's dead and gone, but I think we can save the knee.
You certainly do that well.
I ought to. I've been a nurse for 20 years. Your beau's in the infantry?
Yes, I just saw him off this afternoon.
There's a picture of my husband. He's overseas now.
Oh, he's nice looking. Here's my paw.
Oh.
I understand there's quite a shortage of nurses now.
Oh, there's a desperate need for nurses. As a matter of fact, they need several 100,000 right away.
Several 100,000. Well, where are they all going to come from?
From all over. Women like myself who've retired, going back into active nursing. The nurses' aides help a lot. But principally, they'll come from the United States Cadet Nurse Corps.
What's that?
Well, that's something the government has started to encourage the right kind of person to go in for nursing. Congress has set up scholarships in most of the nursing schools throughout the country. So the girls get their tuition, room and board, and practically everything else. They even get a regular monthly spending allowance.
Well, how long is the course?
In some schools 2 years, and others 2.5. plus a senior cadet period.
But by that time, the war may be over. I hope. I'd like to do something. But I want a job that's war work right now.
Well, you couldn't help more than by becoming a nurse. You begin the very day you start. You help release a graduate nurse for duty with the Army or Navy. Well, it's war work, all right. It's the most important kind of war work.
But doesn't one have to be born to nursing?
Nonsense. Oh, you do have to like it and really want to do it. It's not always easy, but it is rewarding. When someone looks up at you and says, thanks, that feels better. Well, makes you feel good all the way down to your toes.
I think that's what I've been looking for. You see, that's the marvelous part of it. It's something that stands by you all your life. It's not just a job. It's a profession.
Peggy, you better go right up to bed. You've got a temperature.
I'm not sick, darling. I'm just excited. This is a new start for me, a new life. I went right down to the medical center from Mrs. Scott, and the director of the School of Nursing gave me all the information. I can take the course right here in town.
Margaret, if you're thinking of becoming a nurse, you can get it right out of your head. No daughter of mine's going to do anything so distasteful. Imagine messing around with blood and germs and disinfectants. Ooh.
Oh, Mother. I guess I'll just have to start at the beginning and explain the whole thing to you. There are nursing schools affiliated with the United States Cadet Nurse Corps all over the country. Applicants for membership must be over the age of 18, in good health, and high school graduates with good scholastic records.
But, Peggy, you have such a good position. And to start in again as a student...
But, Mother, I'll end up as an RN, a registered nurse. I'll have a profession, and a darn good one, too. And right from the start, I'd help release a graduate nurse for essential duty. Maybe civilian, or maybe for the Army or Navy. And besides, Mother, nurse training is more than just a war job. From now on, there'll be more and more need for good nurses, and I intend to be one of the best. Don't you see? It's useful and dignified, and it's part of the United States Public Health Service. You couldn't ask for anything more than that, could you? Wait, listen to what the Surgeon General has to say. The young woman who has come face to face with the problems of life and death, of suffering and healing, who uses a warm heart, wise hands, and a cool head in administering to her fellow human beings in need, has indeed achieved the richest measure of her potentialities as a woman. The profession of nursing, diligently pursued, is abundant in reward. It's an honorable profession with a privileged present and a proud future.
I don't suppose anyone cares what I think. I say that if you don't sign up for that tomorrow, you're crazy.
Oh, Dad.
Good luck, Chickie.
Thanks, darling.
Members of this graduating class will accept commissions in the Army Nurse Corps. 4 will be ensigns in the Navy. Of those remaining at home, 7 will serve on the staff of this hospital. 4 will become associated with the Public Health Service, and 1 nurse is to be given a scholarship for advanced study in nursing education. In these times of chaos and destruction, these young women will practice a profession which will alleviate pain and suffering. I'm happy to present the diplomas and the pin of their school to this graduating class.
Here, I'll take that. He's having another of his bad dreams. You go into him. You're his pet.
What's the matter, Jimmy?
I dreamt it again about the truck hitting me.
Oh, well, you mustn't. That's all over now. You're going to get well. And by the time it's nice outside, you'll be running around. And you'll never get knocked down again as long as you live, because you'll always look before you run out into the street.
Know something?
What?
I like you best of all the nurses. You're the shiny one.
The shiny one? You mean my nose is shiny? If it is, I'll go down and powder it.
It's a kind of a inside shine. It shines through your eyes.
Thanks, Jimmy. I guess that's what happens when you're happy. Sleep well, dear.
If you are between 18 and 35, healthy and a high school graduate of good scholastic standing, if you want to be of immediate vital service to your country, if you want a dignified career that you can continue after marriage, and a valuable preparation for life, apply at your nearest hospital for information about the United States Cadet Nurse Corps, or write Box 88, New York City.
Children are such a joy. No wonder people say, what a shame they have to grow up. But grow up they will. And the work of growing up is the lifelong study of Dr. Robert E. Switzer, director of the Children's Division of the Menninger Clinic.
As he grows to maturity, the child confronts a seemingly endless succession of hurdles. Work jobs that he must complete at each stage in his development. If he fails to complete these jobs at the appropriate time, and if he fails too often, he may have difficulties in later periods of development. He may become discouraged, fearful, angry, resentful, crippled in his capacity to give and take and love and be loved. Mental illness constitutes the #1 health problem in our land. It's a problem that we can never solve with treatment alone. As in smallpox and polio, and prevention. Now, the major primary preventers of mental illness are parents and teachers and other adults that enter the child's life and influence his growth and development. At every stage of growth, the child needs understanding and he needs support. So it is our privilege and responsibility to make a positive contribution to the prevention of mental illness by helping him work through each task he confronts, and do it in such a way that we develop his capacity to cope with the stresses and strains that will plague him as long as he lives. In this short film, we seek to illustrate some of the kinds of hurdles the growing child must overcome, and give some insight into how adults, especially parents and teachers, can help. It's a very ordinary story about a few fairly typical hours in the life of a fairly typical boy, a boy named Jamie.
Who cares about Jamie? A lot of people. One person who cares is Jamie himself. In fact, he's his own major concern. He's done a lot of growing since he came on Earth. But there's still more growing to do. Much more. And Jamie is constantly self-impelled to get on with it. Yes, there's a lot of work to growing up. And Jamie still has so much of that work to do. The setbacks can hurt and confuse. It's not easy to accept failure. Not a bit easy.
happened in school today, did you... Oh, Jamie, how many times must I tell you to come home and change into play clothes before you get dirty?
I'm sorry.
Mother has such a hard time keeping... What's this?
Mr. Palmer gave it to me. No, I took it.
You mean you stole it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Jamie, Jamie, won't you ever grow up?
Yes, Jamie will grow up. That's exactly what he's doing. Exploring his environment. Experimenting in his relations with himself and with other people. The work that lies ahead of him runs the gamut of all man's experience on Earth, because it must provide a foundation on which to build an adult life of useful service. He needs help in gaining from this particular experience added strength to hurdle the next. So let's turn back the clock and see what those adults who touch Jamie's life this day might do. Here he is, just released from school. A package of pent-up energy bursting with the need to see, feel, dig, smell, taste, hear, explore, climb. Above all, the need to be more grown up today than he was yesterday. Who cares about Jamie? Miss Simmons does. Helping children to grow is her life's work, in the classroom and in the world outside. Now, what can she do for Jamie?
Oh, dear. Jamie shouldn't be trying that. I should stop him. No, with those older boys watching, he'd be humiliated to have me tell him he's not man enough to do the trick. Let him try again. He probably can't do the trick, but at least I can help him prove he's game enough to try. Jamie, there'll be another day, and you'll make it then. You know you will.
Jamie, though, is not so sure. Mr. Lombardi does not care about Jamie. All he sees is some stupid kid trying to get himself killed. Is it reasonable to expect Mr. Lombardi to be concerned about the effect of this on the boy? Probably not. Falling off the bar, nearly getting yourself run over. It's things like this that make growing up so rough. Life was so much easier for Jamie when he was littler, when he didn't expect as much from himself, and neither did other people. The policeman, what opportunities he has to influence the growth of children, for better or worse. Now, what do you do about a boy who's just about to eat a worm? Bark at him? Frighten him? Flaunt your authority? You could try diversionary tactics. Steer him into some more constructive activity. But maybe you can help him best by just standing there as a positive image of a grown-up man. That's what it's all about. Jamie's yen to be a grown-up man. And let him save face by pretending he had no thought of eating that worm. Now, won't Mother be mad about the mud on those pants? Jamie doesn't care. Or does he? Mother certainly cares. Jamie knows the family rule. He can change into older clothes and get as dirty as he likes. But school clothes, the can of oil, stolen from Mr. Palmer. Jamie's never done such a thing before. What's gotten into him? What made him do it? Those are good questions. Much better questions than, who taught my boy to steal? Or what will the neighbors think? Jamie won't be able to offer any profound psychological explanation in terms of frustration, regression, and aggressive behavior. But Mother can piece together enough of the story to realize that the theft was a sudden impulsive act, an act which baffles Jamie most of all, and which he's made no attempt to conceal.
Well, I'm really sorry things went wrong today, Jamie. But that's no excuse for what you did. Stealing is bad. We don't take things that don't belong to us.
What are you going to do?
I wish I knew. You've got to learn to... Your father will be home soon. Now go up to your room and wait for him.
He'll be mad.
We'll see. No more talk now. Go on.
Waiting till Father comes home. Is Mother passing the buck? Or does she truly sense this as a family crisis? One which must be dealt with as a family? She doesn't know. She's only doing what seems right at the moment. Right, not for herself, but for Jamie. Who cares about Jamie? Father does. Home from work, he's walking headlong into a problem.
Anybody home?
Problems are a common occupational hazard of child rearing. But the problems are also opportunities, provided parents and children don't choose up sides, but align themselves on the same side, understanding what the problem really is and working it through.
Oh, I don't know. I'm worried about Jamie. He came home with this in his pocket.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't know. Apparently everything had been going wrong for him today. So he walks into Mr. Palmer's and steals it. And I just don't know what we're going to do.
Do? He's just going to take it back. Jamie!
No, I mean about Jamie stealing things.
Oh, no, wait. Jamie hasn't become a thief overnight. He just... Well, I'll tell you what it is that's bugging him. He's just fighting back. And I want him to fight back. He just doesn't know who or where or what to fight.
I'm sorry, Dad.
I know you are, son. And I don't think you wanted to do anything bad. But just the same, that's what you did. Now, you're going to have to take this back to Mr. Palmer and apologize.
You mean alone?
No, Jamie, not alone. By going with you, your father is trying to say these things. What you did was wrong. Your mother and I understand why you did it, but we don't approve of what you did. We'll stand by you, though, when you're in trouble. And after dinner, when Father sends you to your room, he's saying, we want you to remember that what you did was wrong. And a person who does wrong things gets punished for it.
More coffee?
Oh, thank you, dear.
I wonder, have we done the right thing?
The answer is probably yes. Other parents might have responded quite differently and still been right. The important thing is that they act constructively out of their own conviction as to what is best for the child and their family, not from some abstract or theoretical notion about how parents ought to behave.
What was that?
He must have broke his lamp.
Well, that does it. That boy's got to be punished.
Oh, now be careful.
Be careful. What do you mean, be careful? All right, young man, we've put up with just about all.
I'm sorry, Dad. It was an accident.
I know it was, Jamie.
What's important? Punishing the boy further or establishing communication with him? Ever since school let out, the world has been against him. And no matter what Jamie has tried to do about it, it seems he's always done the wrong thing. He knows it's his fault. That's why he's mad at himself. The trouble is, he's just too little, and he wants to be so grown up. Help me, Dad. Help me to grow up. There are so many ways that dads and mothers, teachers, policemen, and other adults can constructively help children along this rocky road to maturity. Making Jamie an equal partner in washing the car can help restore his sense of personal worth and help him identify with his father as the image of the grown-up man he's struggling to become. And how about taking the attitude that he's big enough to finish it on his own? It probably won't be quite so good for the car, but it can do a world of good for Jamie. And what of the hurdles each child must conquer? Too many defeats, too little understanding will grow in him like a cancer, eating away his capacity to make normal adjustments to the stresses and strains of life. To each of us is given the privilege of helping him over each hurdle in such a way that we strengthen his ability to overcome the next. Who cares about Jamie? If we all care enough, we can take a giant step toward wiping out mental illness.
Telephone ringing in the night. A worried voice calling on the doctor for help. In any language, this spells trouble. Nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramps, and diarrhea. Trouble, and still more of the same. The number and severity of the symptoms vary, but they all fit a pattern. It looks as if the doctor has an outbreak of acute gastroenteritis on his hands. He won't get much rest this night. What could have caused the outbreak? Suppose we go back several hours earlier in the evening and look in on a certain restaurant and a dinner party which an executive is giving his employees. Recognize any of them? It's hard to believe these are the same people, isn't it? It's quite an event. They look healthy, happy, and well-fed. What caused such a violent outbreak of sickness only a little more than 3 hours after the dinner? Out of the total of 23 persons attending this dinner, 14 became ill with varying degrees of nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramps, and diarrhea. It was a good dinner. They had ham, fried cabbage, sweet potatoes, a very tasty salad, chocolate eclairs for dessert, and plenty of good hot coffee. Still, something went wrong. Let's see exactly what did happen to cause so much suffering and misery. The water was ruled out as a contaminating agent since it came from the city water supply, a pure one, and no similar outbreaks were reported elsewhere in town at that time. The coffee was made fresh and served piping hot. The only milk served was grade A, pasteurized and refrigerated. The bread was good and fresh. The salad and vegetables were ruled out as probable suspects due to the mixed incidents among the guests of those who became ill and those who did not. The meat was suspected because all of the 14 people who became ill had eaten ham. And the chocolate eclairs were incriminated in the same way. Everyone had eaten eclairs. Laboratory tests confirmed the pastry as the contaminating agent by revealing colonies of staphylococci in the filling. This is Staphylococcus aureus, some strains of which produce a toxin in the food before ingestion, causing the most common type of all food poisonings. Now let's find out how this poison developed in the pastry filling. From the restaurant manager, it was learned that although all the other foods served were prepared in their kitchen, the pastries had been ordered from a bakery on the other side of town. They were delivered in the late afternoon, shortly before the dinner was served. He remembered very distinctly that they were promptly refrigerated. At the bakery, we found the source of our trouble. This baker didn't know it, but he was the carrier. For this superficial skin infection on his forefinger contained colonies of staphylococci, which were transferred to the pastry filling. We're not sure exactly when and how the organisms were transferred from the infection to the eclairs, but we're certain there was ample opportunity. We investigated the bakery thoroughly, and the overall operation was excellent. The eclairs were made early in the morning on the day of the dinner. The ingredients were good. The bakery and the baker were clean. The only breakdown in sanitary precautions was this particular baker's infected finger, a superficial skin infection. A little thing in a way, but extremely important to the people who became ill. The pastries were finished. And it was about an hour before the delivery man picked them up for delivery to the restaurant. Uh-oh, motor trouble. The driver didn't know much about engines, so he decided to call a garage for help. It was probably about this time that the Staphylococcus organisms from the baker's infected finger began to grow in the eclairs. And in growing, they manufactured a poison. The poison which made the people at the party so sick. The driver found a telephone and called a garage. Then he waited. The mechanic didn't think the job would take long, so he waited. And waited. And all this time, the Staphylococcus organisms were growing and manufacturing poison in the eclairs. Finally, he decided to call the bakery and report his delay. He was told to go have his lunch and wait a reasonable length of time. Then, when he returned to the garage, just had to wait. And wait in the uncomfortably hot garage. After several hours' delay, the repairs were finally completed, and the driver started on his route. He had some other deliveries to make, so the organisms in the eclairs had still more time to grow. The pastry filling was probably pretty well contaminated by this time. It was late in the afternoon before the pastries were delivered to the restaurant. In fact, it had been more than 6 hours since the pastries were contaminated by the baker's infected finger. By this time, the eclairs were thoroughly saturated with the poison from the organisms. Our story involved eclairs, but it could just as well have been meat, milk, milk products, other pastries, or any one of a long list of foods. With similar circumstances, many foods could have caused this outbreak. Eliminate either the baker's infected finger or the long delay in the truck, and this outbreak of Staphylococcus intoxication could not have occurred. There would have been no poison in the food, and the boss's dinner party would have been nothing more than a pleasant evening. Everyone enjoyed a fine meal and had a good time.
Movable, all designed for maximum efficiency, for work with interruption for many, many years. From the times of the games in ancient Olympia to modern, man has tested the and endurance of his body in stiffest competition. And fibers that hold up their beautiful flowered heads. He found that animals have different types of support. Some have an outside support, like the sponge, the coral, the clam. They are enclosed in their houses, but the vertebrates, fish, the reptiles, the birds, and the mammals have an internal body frame which gives them a greater freedom of motion. And among the mammals, the human species is the only one that developed a frame which holds it upright and gives it strength and mobility on the ground, in the water, in climbing, jumping, or running. Some 200 bones of every conceivable size and shape, moved by some 700 muscles, are ready to perform feats of great skill and follow every command of a highly developed nervous system. Each of the 200 bones of the human skull has a specialized function to perform, but all the bones together give the body. At the same time, many of the bones protect and support the organs of the body. Protect the lungs. The breastbone shields the heart. The pelvic girdle, with a part of the spinal column, protects the lower abdominal cavity. The pelvic girdle also provides the base for both legs. Bones of the cranium are thick and firmly connected to protect the most important of all organs, the brain, and the delicate sensory organs such as the eyes and ears. The spinal cord This sensitive and all-important organ is guarded from injury by small bones or vertebrae, which at the same time provide firm but flexible support for the trunk part of the body. To permit the body to move freely, the human skeleton has a number of joints, each serving a special purpose. The elbow joint resembles a hinge and is called the hinge joint. A hinge joint allows movement in one direction only, but with considerable pulling power. The knee bones also function like hinges on a door. The moving X-ray picture demonstrates this one-sided motion of the hinge joint of the knee. The shoulder joint gives considerable freedom to the arm, which can rotate in several directions. Such a joint is called a ball and socket joint. Just like the arm at the shoulder, the legs at the hip can move nearly in every direction. The ball and socket joint is so designed that it allows a rotary motion in several directions. The wrist can also move in several directions, but the wrist motion is achieved by another type of joint called a gliding joint, because the wrist bones glide over each other as the wrist moves up and down or sideways. Bones could not stand the friction and tension demanded of them if it were not for constant lubrication. Every movement of the joints is lubricated by a secretion called the synovial fluid. This fluid is secreted by membranes located at the joint ends of bones. The synovial fluid and the cartilage of the joints provide frictionless motion. The size of bones varies with the function they have to perform. Bones grow along lines of stress. A well-developed shin bone, for instance, can support 20 times its normal load. However, man is not born with a hard and strong skeleton. Bones develop gradually out of a jelly-like matter. This process begins during the second month of the embryo. Here is roughly how this is accomplished. At those points in the embryo where connective tissue is subjected to stress and strain, fibers are pressed closer together and first form cartilage. Under the microscope, cartilage cells appear as round bodies embedded in an amber-like jelly. Let's go in closer. Bone develops gradually as blood vessels penetrate into the cartilage. These blood vessels are accompanied by young connective tissue cells which absorb the jelly-like cartilage cells. The bloodstream brings calcium to the new cells. Mix the calcium with the jelly into bone substance. The connective tissue crowds the cartilage cells out of their former positions. The cartilage cells withdraw and take up new positions further away. This process of gradual retreat of cells lengthens the bones on each end, and the skeleton grows longer and thicker. In other words, the individual grows. As soon as the child begins to stand up, his legs must support him. The cartilage was only a temporary scaffold, which now must give way to a firm and strong bone matter. The weight of the child presses upon the bones of the skeleton, especially on the legs. Weight is distributed along definite lines of stress. Cartilage and newly developed bone matter are stimulated to grow together along these lines of stress. Wherever the cells have not been under stress, they gradually degenerate and disappear, leaving an internal bone structure of spongy character, which makes the bones light but strong, capable of holding up the weight of the body, just as the network of slender steel girders holds up a heavy roof or a bridge. The structure of bone is extremely commonly magnified with tiny tubes called Haversian systems. A still closer view of one such tube would disclose a tiny blood vessel in the center. It gives nourishment to thousands of bone cells connected with each other in spider-like fashion by many minute canals. The bone-forming cells are encased in their shells and surrounded by a cement-like mass of collagen fibers and calcium. The bone-forming cells are arranged in rings around the central canal, through which the blood vessel grows. The cells produce calcified bone matter with which they first surround themselves. Then they produce more of it to fortify the structure around themselves until they are completely imprisoned in it, leaving only an opening for a tiny capillary, which then brings them food from the central blood source. Thousands of tubes closely knit together form the bone. All bones of the skeleton, large and small, develop in the same way. They are composed of the same organic and inorganic matter. All bone consists of mineral salts and living matter. It is easy to demonstrate the mineral and tissue contents of the bone. Some acids will dissolve most of the mineral matter out of the bone, leaving only the bone substance. The general appearance of the bone has not changed, but now the bone has no rigidity. It bends without breaking. Burning removes all living tissue from the bone. One light stroke will chip it. Again, the shape of the bone has not been altered much, but it has lost all elasticity. The minerals enter the body with food, and the blood carries them into the bone tissue. In childhood and adolescence, the diet must be particularly balanced to ensure adequate mineral supply. Milk is a natural source of minerals for all young mammals. But minerals are not, especially vitamin D, are necessary for the process of ossification. Just as bones develop along the line of distress, so ligaments and joints develop through exercise. With exercise, the spinal column loosens up to allow considerable freedom of motion, forward and backward, and to both sides. It is important to keep it in good shape, because the backbone is the axis of the skeleton. And yet few people have perfectly shaped spines. Round backs can be seen everywhere. Sometimes well-formed spines get bent out of shape when children carry loads that are too heavy for them. But round and hollow backs are mostly the result of bad habits. The spinal column should neither be misused nor condemned to inactivity. Lack of exercise is one of the most frequent causes of a weak spine. High heels can also force the spine out of shape. The best form of exercise for the spinal column is carrying a moderate load on the head. Balancing a load on the head forces all parts of the spinal column to become active, and it develops strength and flexibility. We have seen that bones develop out of soft cartilage during the years of growth. Proper food gives the body all the essential building materials for a healthy frame. Proper exercise influences the size and strength of the bones. Once developed, the body frame needs to be kept strong and healthy by good posture, by constant use of all the joints, tendons, and ligaments, by wearing proper clothes, and especially footwear, and by frequent exercise in fresh air. In short, by developing and keeping up this wonderful framework with which nature has endowed us. When given proper care, the human body is capable of meeting all the exigencies of daily living. But it is up to everyone to develop the potentialities of his own body frame in order to
To bring a community fly problem under control involves a basic plan of attack that can be applied to any community. This plan divides into education, informing the people and gaining their support. Second, sanitation, eliminating the fly breeding sources. And third, chemical control, the application of spray materials. Beyond this basic plan, however, each community presents individual problems of its own. This film is the case history of a fly control project in a town that we shall call Jonesville. The citizens were proud of their town. They kept their lawns mowed and their houses well painted. Jonesville was a clean-looking town, and that's why the people couldn't understand where the flies came from. The flies that plagued them all summer long. the flies that carried disease organisms to their dining rooms and kitchens. Flies mean filth, and Jonesville wasn't a slovenly town. So that was the attitude that faced the state fly control specialists and the local public health men who teamed up to work on the problem. Their first job was to get the facts on fly breeding and distribution throughout the community. A map of the city was divided into the various types of districts: better residential section, substandard residential, the downtown business and market districts, and so forth. A grill survey was made of each of these areas to get a working measurement of the number of flies present. This served as a starting index from which the progress and effectiveness of the control program could be determined. The entomologists placed fly traps at several locations in the community to learn exactly what species were present. This gave information on breeding sources and affected the choice of insecticides to be used. Meanwhile, the sanitarians were surveying the community for fly breeding sources. These were classified in 4 major groups: exposed garbage, animal shelters, industrial waste, and insanitary outdoor toilets. The results of the survey showed that Jonesville had a real fly problem on its hands. So the program entered its first stage: education of the people. The facts were presented to a committee composed of the Jonesville Public Health Officer, members of the local service clubs, the secretary of the Ladies' Garden Society, and representatives of other civic organizations who were influential in the community. The citizens of Jonesville soon realized that their town wasn't as clean as they had supposed. All over town, garbage was emptied into containers waiting the once-a-week collection. But most of the containers were without covers and, well, look. Several families in the better residential district owned riding horses. The stables gleamed with white paint, and the horses were well groomed. But the piles of manure were crawling with fly larvae. On the edge of town was a small cannery, and waste material was allowed to run off onto the ground. Here also was a source of millions of flies. Few of Jonesville's citizens realized that a considerable number of privies existed right in the middle of town. Many of these privies swarmed with flies, and it was a pretty disturbing thought that after walking and feeding on the filth of the privies, these same flies entered nearby homes and restaurants to walk over food and tableware. All of this was an unpleasant revelation to the people of Jonesville, and they wanted action at once. Radio stations and newspapers were easily induced to spread the information on fly breeding sources in the community. The education program was carried to the classroom, where the children were shown that flies can carry disease organisms from filth and garbage to the food we eat. Civic groups took up the problem with the city officials, asking that new laws be passed or old ones revised to clean up the community. Soon it was all-out war on flies. The Boy Scouts were recruited to tack up posters and hand out literature. More and more, the people of Jonesville were stopping to think about the fly problem, for each was shown that it was his problem, his own personal and individual responsibility. When the education program was well underway, space spraying machines were brought into action. These spectacular machines showed the people that something active was being done. And though expensive to operate, they did give prompt relief from the flies. Also, residual sprays and larvicides were applied in severe problem areas, again for immediate relief. But the control men knew that while the use of chemicals was necessary early in the program, the results would only be temporary. For permanent control, the emphasis was placed on sanitation, the elimination of fly breeding sources. The local merchants cooperated, by offering good quality standard garbage cans at reasonable prices. The housewives of Jonesville were quick to get behind the program. They had been shown that wrapping garbage saves the unpleasant task of washing the can, prolongs the life of the can, and reduces odors. And wrapped garbage in a covered can is virtually sure proof against flies. The owners of horses and other animals began to store the manure in covered cans until the garbage collectors picked it up on their regular schedule. Restaurant and market owners realized that using covered refuse cans was good citizenship and good business, too. By now, garbage was collected twice a week in the residential sections and daily in the market and restaurant districts. This didn't give the flies time to breed before the garbage was removed. But what good was it to remove the garbage, then haul it to an open dump on the very edge of town? A mass production of flies within easy flying distance of Jonesville. This was a problem for the mayor and the city councilman. But Jonesville isn't a big city. We can't afford an expensive incinerator. You don't need one. The sanitary landfill is cheap and effective. Each day's garbage collection is compacted by a bulldozer and covered with a 2-foot layer of earth, fly-proof and rat-proof. A waste of land? Not at all. When the landfill tracks are all used up, several communities have converted them into airports or public parks. Yes, the landfill is the practical and economical answer to community garbage disposal. Turning to the next problem, the fly control specialists, working with the local health department, began a concerted drive against Jonesville's insanitary privies. Where property was not yet served by sewers, homeowners were required to put in septic tanks, sanitary and fly-proof. But since this was a direct expense, the people were allowed reasonable time to make the installation. Industrial plants agreed to haul their own waste to the new sanitary landfill, a voluntary action that materially reduced the fly population on the fringe area of Jonesville. Certain locations, like the stockyards, are problem sites in any community. In Jonesville, these difficult areas were treated regularly with chemicals, residual sprays, and larvicides. By the middle of the second year, the fly control program was giving very definite results. The continued grill surveys showed a satisfactory decline in fly populations in all parts of the city. Then one day, in one of the residential areas, the fly count shot suddenly upward. The district was inspected block by block in a search for this new breeding source. Garbage cans were all in good condition, and all were kept covered. The privies had long ago disappeared from this section. There were no animal shelters here, no exposed animal waste. Or was there? A pile of manure to fertilize a home garden. This was the source of the new outbreak. And that is why community fly problems are never completely eliminated, only controlled. Routine vigilance must continue, keeping a check on possible breeding sources and using insecticides for the occasional small outbreaks. Today, Jonesville has won its major victory over domestic flies. But it wasn't easy. You have seen only the highlights of the program. But fly control can be accomplished in any community by applying the same basic plan that was used in Jonesville. First, survey the community to estimate the number of flies that are present. This is the gauge of the progress and effectiveness of the program. Locate and evaluate the 4 principal sources of fly breeding: exposed garbage, animal shelters, industrial waste, and insanitary privies. Assemble this information as the basis for the detailed plan of attack. Gain the confidence and cooperation of the people. Without it, you're licked before you start. show them how they themselves can go a long way toward eliminating the sources of flies. Work closely with city officials, helping them to work out the more expensive municipal problems. Basic sanitation must be emphasized for the permanent control of flies. But use insecticides for immediate relief and as a supplementary measure in the more difficult problem areas. That is the basic plan of approach. Consider the problem, plan carefully, and remember, community fly control is possible anywhere.
A question arises. What does one under the influence of LSD hear, see, and do? We're about to take you into the world of the LSD user, a world that to him is real, yet as terrifying and unreal as anything ever imagined. We call his trip of terror to fly a giant bird.